There was a time when New York City wasn't just a city, it was a rhythm, a sound, a smell. It was the click of polished shoes on pavement, the hum of a jukebox spinning Sinatra, and the warmth of a neighbor waving from across the street. The 1950s weren't perfect, but to many, they felt like the last chapter of something real. Something steady. Something human. This video isn't just a list. It's a trip back to a world where kids played until the streetlights came on, where you could walk into a diner and be greeted by name, and where community wasn't a slogan, it was a way of life. If you lived in New York during that golden decade, these 10 memories will hit you right in the heart. So sit back, take a deep breath, and let the city carry you home, to the days of milkshakes, Macy's windows, and memories that never left. Because some things you don't just remember, you feel. 1. The sound of shoes on the sidewalk. Before the city was drowned out by headphones and honking cars, there was a different kind of music playing on the streets of New York. The simple, steady rhythm of polished leather shoes tapping against concrete. You could hear it in the early mornings, as men in suits rushed off to work with purpose, and in the late afternoons, when women in heels strolled down Fifth Avenue with shopping bags in hand. It wasn't noise. It was life. And for those who lived it, that sound still echoes somewhere deep inside the soul. There was no rush to bury yourself in a screen. No need for background noise. The conversations floated through the air, from newsboys on the corners yelling headlines, to the greetings between shopkeepers and neighbors. Every block had a heartbeat, and every step you took reminded you, you were part of something bigger. The city spoke, not through chaos, but through footsteps. It was a sound you felt as much as heard. And once you heard it, you never forgot. 2. Diners with swivel stools and friendly faces. Back in the 50s, diners weren't just places to grab a quick bite, they were part of the routine. You walked in, maybe still brushing off the cold, and the guy behind the counter already knew what you liked. Bacon and eggs. Tuna melt. Cherry pie. No menus needed, just a nod and a smile. The chrome stools spun, the coffee kept coming, and the jukebox in the corner played something familiar. The food wasn't fancy, but it hit the spot. Thick milkshakes in tall glasses, grilled cheese with extra butter, and fries that came out hot every time. You didn't scroll your phone. You read the paper or talked to the person next to you. It was loud, sure, but in a good way. It felt real, simple. The kind of place where time slowed down just enough to enjoy the moment. 3. Macy's holiday windows were pure magic. Every December, the sidewalks outside Macy's turned into a show of their own. Parents bundled up the kids, grabbed a hot chocolate, and walked down 34th Street just to see what the windows looked like that year. Toy trains, moving puppets, snowy scenes, all behind the glass, glowing with soft lights. It wasn't just about shopping, it was about wonder. For a lot of kids, that was the moment Christmas really started. People came from all over the city just to catch a glimpse. You'd hear gasps from children, laughter from couples, and maybe even a caroler or two nearby. No social media, no selfies. Just people looking, smiling, enjoying something together. Simple traditions like that didn't need much to be special. They just needed time, attention, and a little holiday spirit. 4. Kids played freely in the streets. After school or on the weekends, kids didn't need much to stay busy. A stick, a ball, a jump rope, and the whole block became a playground. You'd see them riding bikes, playing stickball, or making up games right on the sidewalk. No one worried too much. As long as you were home by the time the streetlights came on, you were fine. Neighbors kept an eye out, older kids watched the younger ones, and everyone knew who belonged on the block. There were no phones, no GPS, no apps. Just common sense and trust. And somehow, it worked. Those were the days when childhood felt like real freedom, even in the middle of a big city like New York. 5. The subway was loud, but it felt safe. Sure, the trains rattled and screeched, and sometimes it felt like your seat might shake right off the tracks, but the subway got you where you needed to go. Wooden benches, metal straps, and fans that barely worked in the summer. Still, it was part of everyday life, and people used it without thinking twice. You could sit next to a stranger and maybe even strike up a conversation. There was a kind of unspoken respect back then. People offered seats to the elderly, kids behaved, at least most of the time, and if trouble started, someone stepped in. It wasn't spotless, but it was dependable. For many, those noisy rides underneath the city were just another rhythm of New York, part of the daily beat that kept everything moving. 6. Newsboys on the corners. You'd hear them before you saw them, shouting headlines with a stack of papers under one arm and a few coins jangling in the other. Extra. Extra. Wasn't just a movie line back then. Newsboys were everywhere, standing on corners in the early morning or late afternoon, hoping to sell one more paper before heading home. It was how a lot of kids earned their first dollars. Rain or shine, they showed up. Some barely old enough to carry the stack, but proud to be working. People didn't just buy the paper, they had their favorite kid, the one they always looked for. It wasn't just about the news. It was about the face that brought it to you. 7. Automats felt like the future. If you walked into an automat for the first time, it felt almost futuristic. A wall of little glass windows, each holding a hot meal or slice of pie, just waiting for a coin to unlock it. No waiters, no lines. Just pick, pay, and eat. Quick, quiet, and surprisingly good. It wasn't just about the food, it was the experience. You'd see businessmen grabbing lunch, teenagers on dates, or families treating the kids to something special. The sound of coins dropping, the click of a door opening. It felt efficient, clean, even exciting. A small slice of innovation right in the middle of everyday life. 8. School meant respect. Classrooms in the 50s had a different feel. Desks were in straight rows, teachers had authority, and kids knew where the line was, and not to cross it. You stood when the teacher entered. You didn't talk back. And if you got in trouble, you'd be more worried about what your parents would say than the school itself. It wasn't about fear, it was about structure. Parents trusted the school, and the school expected something in return. Discipline, manners, effort. Students might not have had the latest gadgets, but they left with something just as valuable: respect for others and for themselves. 9. Black and white TV was a big deal. There weren't dozens of channels, just 3 or 4 if your antenna was working right. And still, families would gather around the TV like it was an event. Whether it was I Love Lucy, The Ed Sullivan Show, or the evening news, it didn't matter. It was shared time, and that made it special. You might have had to fiddle with the antenna, maybe even wrap it in foil, but once the picture came in, it was magic. The screen was small, the image was fuzzy, and the sound was mono, but no one cared. What mattered was being together, laughing at the same jokes, and knowing everyone on your block watched the same thing the night before. 10. Community wasn't just a word, it was real. Even in a city as big as New York, it felt like a small town, at least on your street. Block parties in the summer, helping shovel snow in the winter, sharing meals during hard times. That was just how things were done. It didn't matter if you had a lot or a little. What mattered was that you looked out for each other. That kind of community can't be downloaded or delivered. It's built, slowly, intentionally, and with heart. And for those who lived it, those moments left a mark deeper than any skyline. Because long after the buildings change and the city moves on, the feeling of belonging stays. New York in the 1950s wasn't perfect. No time ever is. But it had a rhythm, a spirit, and a sense of connection that's hard to find today. It was a place where simple things mattered: a shared meal, a kind neighbor, a child playing safely on the street. And somehow, even with less technology, people seemed more present, and maybe even more content. If you lived through that time, you carry something special. A set of values, memories, and stories that deserve to be remembered. And if you didn't, maybe this glimpse into the past reminds us all that sometimes, the best parts of life are the simplest ones. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to share your own memories in the comments.